I'm really, really excited to have this particular opportunity to invite and welcome Pam Lau, who will be doing a workshop for an outreach for grassroots arts organizers, finding resourceful ways to reach participants. And her bio will be in the chat. So without further ado, I want to invite Pam into the space to offer this workshop. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know also, my neighbors decided to use some chainsaws or do some renovations in the middle of the day. So just let me know if you can't hear for some reason. I can't, okay, yeah, I can share screen. And can everyone see that okay? Yeah. All right, thank you so much. The Gathering Divergence for having me. My name is Pam Lau. I'm going to go over a bit introduction of myself. And actually, I have some people may not know this, but I actually have a history with this organization as well. Today, we're going to be talking about outreach for grassroots organizers. I'm going to walk through my experience co-founding a grassroots arts education initiative and running a program through 3 years, all the tips and tricks I learned, and the learnings also as well. The ways that I found to use data, use proof of concepts, use partnerships, testimonials, industry connections, all of those things to help strengthen and bring high quality applicants for our programs. Here's going to be the agenda for the day. I'm going to break it up. So I'm going to pretty much use ideas from our capstone program as a case study and touch through all of these elements. There's going to be some exercise as well for you, either if you want to throw it in the chat or just write down for your own purposes as well as things to think about in application to your own grassroots organizations or initiatives. I would love just to be, I find on Zoom, it's very hard these days to stay engaged and focused. So I really want you to leave with something, some action steps and people you can reach out to next or even today. And again, bring that spirit of action and doing into this. The basis of what I'm talking about for outreach for grassroots organizers, especially if you have a limited budget, is kind of through the ethos of word of mouth or word of mouth marketing. 92% of consumers trust recommendations from family or friends. This is from a study by Nielsen, and word of mouth is a primary factor behind 20 to 50% of all purchasing decisions. So this statistic is from the concept of marketing or for-profit, but it can be applied to grassroots arts organization, not-for-profit arts organization, because for marketing, a key challenge is to define the audience, define the message, and how do you reach that messaging to that audience, and how do you design it to speak to them? The benefit of grassroots arts organizations is that you already have the message built in. You have vision statements and mission statements, and it's actually, we don't have to convince people to buy some pens or products that people don't need or that there's a need from it. The work that we do in our organizations is important and good work, and it's all about just finding the right people to help share that message. I would love if everyone who's here to just give maybe a brief intro in the chat. I think this could also serve as a networking tool in itself, because I found, conversing with, leaning on fellow other grassroots organizers has been a very, very helpful way to grow and learn for myself as a person. So if you can throw in the chat just your name, if you work with an organization or if you have one yourself, and just like a quick line about what you do. And then maybe that could also be used as a point for brainstorming and sharing knowledge as well, because everyone here has a wealth of information that they have to share as well. So while we're doing the intro, I'm just going to give a brief overview about myself. So I'm a photographer. I've been freelancing for the past 10 years. I'm completely self-taught. It took me a long time to figure out what drew me to photography, but if I think I could define it is growing up, I was very shy, and I had a lot of people around me that were kind of feeling like I had to follow their instructions or leads over mine. So my photography practice has been kind of a way, it's a bit of a rebellion in a sense, to create a space that I want, to create something in my head that I want. And again, cultivating, photography is often a form of fantasy and world building. So I, subconsciously somewhere in there, I think, what I'm drawn to, the subjects, the kind of environment that I'm attracted to, I feel it is a reflection of myself and how I want to feel. And then as well, I really like photography because it gave me an authority in a space, and I define that for myself. So nothing, growing up very shy, it was very hard for me to articulate my thoughts. But being on set, I really love the feeling of, expressing this is what I have an idea, and also the collaboration and the synergy with subjects with the crew members. So from my beginnings, I was actually studied arts management at UT Scarborough many, many years ago. Victoria here was actually my classmate. The story behind how I came across arts management, I was applying in grade 12 university, leading up to university. I was applying for like business school, economics, and I found in the I don't know what the application system, I just saw this arts management at UT Scarborough program. I had no idea what it was, but it had the word arts, and I was really craving to have that background, but I have the word management, so I could convince my parents that maybe it had useful skills or that I could use. And that's how I really found it. It was just perchance. I leaned into my intuition, and I'm really glad that I did. Ironically, when I was first studying arts management in university, I couldn't really have a good idea of how it could be applied, but here we are years later, and I am learning and drawing from my experience there. So on at arts management, what was really helpful for me was all my like extracurricular, all the things I did outside of the classes. So Art Side Out is interdisciplinary festival. I think originally I was one of like the first or second years that they had started this festival, and it was like kind of like a Nuit Blanche-esque throughout one night only, I believe, had, interdisciplinary performances and installations all throughout the UT Scarborough campus. And I believe I was on the marketing team. And this festival is still around today. I'm very surprised that it's kind of has legs beyond for where it started. I was also Gallery 1265 is the student-run contemporary art gallery at UT Scarborough, and it was part of my work study to work on the website. This is the website now. The website that I worked on then is a lot worse because we didn't have as many easy to use tools as we do now. And then my third connection was Charles, who's the co-founder of this organization. Charles Smith is also my prof, my previous prof. I really loved cultural policy, taking from Charles, and something I still carry with me today was he always emphasized to challenge the status quo. And if you don't see something that is speaking to you now, be critical, challenge the canon of what's being taught, and don't be afraid to create something for your own if it's not being seen. And so part of my work study is I also worked with Charles as well. And then fast forward after graduation, I started to freelance in photography on the side. It was mostly I had a passing interest in photography there's some student groups saying, oh, Pam has a camera, why don't you come shoot these events with us? And I started to intern and then work at a marketing magazine. At the time, it was a trade publication owned by Rogers Media, so I was working there and also doing school. That's how I started to build my photography side. It was not something that I did not consider when I was growing up as a viable career, but it started to find myself through that. So in 2019, I started to have some relationships and programming with an organization called the Creator Class. At the time in Toronto, they were a hub for a lot of programming, photography related programming and talks. And I taught a workshop in 2019 on art direction and working with clients. This is from the workshop that was. And then since then, I've been signed on as an ambassador since 2020. I teach for Futures. They have a incubator for emerging photographers, filmmakers, storytellers across Canada, and it's a 1 year mentorship program. And I'm also on the jury for that as well, uh, looking over intake of applications. And then I'm also involved in other, this is from the, I believe it was International Women's Day talk, but they have programming as well for through an organization called Socality, help to design in-person photography events. So for example, there's one coming up at the Kajama. Kajama, it's basically a pirate ship at the harbor front. And then my task is to find how do we make this interesting to be photographed, or how do we make it engaging so people can use and try new test scanning gears. So I help with the designing the art direction of that, testing models and creating something interesting that can allow the participants to come and photograph. And then fast forward a few years, coming up to 2021 with so eCrew, originally Jimmy V was my co-founder. He is a commercial and music video director. Uh, I don't remember how we got first connected, but we wanted to do something together. Originally, we wanted to start, as a lot of creatives do, what does creative friends do, is start a agency. But we're all creative people, and we weren't business and operations people, so that that didn't last very long. So we decided, okay, how do we pivot? And we decided we wanted to focus on mentorship and arts education because Jimmy and I were both self-taught. Jimmy has a background in advertising from OCAD, and we both recognized that it was, being self-taught, being self-employed, it's very difficult and it's a long and lonely road. And we were thinking about, okay, if we could design something for us at that stage, what is something that we would have wanted to need the most? So through Outreach is a program funded through Toronto Arts Council and City of Toronto for youth, by and for youth, high quality arts programming for marginalized youth. And we had received funding from 2021 to 2023 for Ideas for My, which is a program for Pan-Asian youth photographers emerging with little to no formal training, photographers and filmmakers. And originally, so that was how eCrew was formed, was for that application. And it took us a couple tries. The first 2 years we applied, we got rejected. And then throughout, we kind of refined and refined, try to figure out what we wanted to teach, who was it for, and how. So that, again, helped shaped how we designed the outreach. Basically, the ideas for my program is just concept ideation. So through a 6 week or 6 session intensive, it's 3 weekends over August that we've done in the past 3 years. It originally started through COVID and lockdown, so it was a virtual, and now it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid program. We just teach them about what's used in photography and film commonly is called a treatment deck. So it's basically a pitch showing through slide deck and visuals, what is the concept that you want to create for a film or photography project. And we teach them about art direction, referencing, using words, visuals, and presenting, presenting with enthusiasm, presenting it concisely as tools for communicating the idea in ahead. So this could be used for funding, for pitching, for potential stakeholders, or as well for communicating for crew members. This is kind of the vision I have in mind, and this is how I want to execute. So for the past, Kat, we can go back. Kat Castro was from the first cohort. Kat is has a dance background and is a self-taught filmmaker. So from the slide on the left was a treatment she designed. It was inspired by, she said during lockdown, she wanted to do freestyle dance in urban spaces, and then came up with a concept for a short film called Undertones, which was experimental dance short. So just kind of a still on the right here. And then she really ran with it and, created the film, submitted to a lot of festivals. I was able to see it earlier this spring in Montreal at the Outremont Theater. It was like La Nuit. It was like a long short film dance marathon. It was one of the few Canadian-made shorts as well. And then she collaborated with a composer to custom create the sound. And here she even printed out this, so cool, vinyl, clear vinyl, just as added to the project to give it more life. Here's another example through Hiru. Hiru came through the program in 2022. She self-taught in film as well, was taking classes in George Brown and fashion costume design. On the top left is a slide from her deck. She conceptualized to create a short experimental thriller. It was the basis is about kind of inspired from experiences of through a personal experience, I believe, and from completing the program, she went to run a crowdfunding campaign, raised just under 10K for the production of her short film. And she finished production this year, and I got to see the premiere this spring at Toronto Indie Horror Fest. It was at Eyesore Cinema. It was a women in horror showcase, and again, it was one of the few Canadian shorts that was in there. And it was so satisfying to see, this is what she had pitched, and this is what she had created at the end. And here's a third example. Tia came through the program in 2022. Tia has a background in graphic design and I believe worked in healthcare. So one of the exercises that we did was to draw from 3 references and explain, why am I drawn to this reference and what is my personal connection to it? So from the bottom left, she had this reference, which was actually a self-portrait she took at age 15. And then through it, she had designed a treatment deck and a concept for Mes Souvenirs, which is a self-portrait series. So on the right, that's one still from her final project, and it was about grief and a love letter to her late grandmother. So she had taken self-portrait series using items from her late grandmother. So here's all kind of the steps that we went through when we were trying to figure out, beyond just a film and photography program, why is it that our program is important, and why is this that it needs to be funded? So these are some pillars that I had written at the beginning. We kind of did this at the beginning. We didn't really have an about, to describe ourselves as Grassroots Arts Education Initiative. And, so the program, beyond being for Pan-Asian filmmakers and photographers, that's kind of just addressing the who, what, where, but what is the why exactly? So we decided, we were frustrated, and we created this from an experience of frustration with gatekeeping. So we know we wanted to create this free program, especially as self-taught, and we wanted to focus on that as well. Some other things is that because Jim and I come from commercial backgrounds, we saw time and time again a lot of campaigns, and tokenization and casting, it's just like looks like the cover of a agenda, multicultural agenda. But then if you look at the behind the scenes of the production, you can see that the people creating that is very different. And we know quite well that just because something is seen on face value as quote unquote diverse, the writing, people creating the stories and the construction of that, that becomes a different thing. And this plays a key point in later in the deck. Oh, I think this comes later. Okay. So I would love if you, while I'm going through this in the chat, just define like one or two values beyond just in the your mission statement or your pitch, but what are some core things, and it could be just words or short phrases. What are things that are really important to you in your connection to your organization, or even what's your purpose driven between why you do the work that you do? So while we're doing that in the chat, I'm going to start to go through defining the audience. So I'm going to go through some data. This is from the third year, the most recent year, the intake data that we had asked in the application form. But this is how when and if we run future iterations, we'll use this data to inform how we structure our outreach. So because outreach, the funding was a limitation of youth, I think it was like 12 to 29 was the age range. We decided we wanted to do it was like 19 to 29 because we found if we're targeting people that are self-taught, a lot of the time they're educated, but in something else. So maybe they have a second career. Maybe if something like me was on the path to taking business and marketing, but if I had not seen the arts management in that in the list of the possibilities, who knows, wouldn't be here. Maybe I would be working at a bank or something like that. So the age is something, the age also defines, if they're young professionals, it also defines the structure of like when and where we deliver it. So the flexibility of the hybrid is an important model. The fact that we wanted to make it condensed within 3 weekends. So instead of a broader like 8 week, several month commitment every week, that sometimes is really hard if you're, working adult and you have other commitments to juggle. And then the weekend flexibility as well. We decided that we wanted to focus and prioritize people who wanted photography and film as their primary source of income. So if we decided that, we're an alternative solution to, someone who wants to transition to film and photography, but for other reasons, financial, whatever, and time, can't go through the process of going through film school from scratch, doing another bachelor's degree, so that became a focus. So people that when we were deliberating, we wanted them to take this seriously and to create a career transition for them. This was just more about kind of our internal and gave us insight about who are the people that were being drawn. So we found that a lot of them were university graduates. We had asked them, what were your other areas of study? It was really interesting, from like neuroscience, kinesiology, business, marketing, like biomed, like really all of these, a large array of study. And then I think this is something that we'll think about going forward, is that, if we're offering a free program, a community arts program, how can we speak and reach to people who don't have the benefit of having gone through university education, especially it being like a finance and barrier-free program? So that's something that we'll think about going forward. And then another thing that I've been thinking about lately is like, because it's an English-speaking program, are we really speaking to newcomers? Are we making it really welcome and accessible for them? This was kind of added on the end, but I think this is actually the key, which is just defining the pain point, which is like, what is the solution that our program brings? So, we had asked as the intake form in the application, What drew you to the program? What do you hope to accomplish? And a lot of it centered around, they really liked that felt community centered. It was a small program. So originally it was 5 to 7, but it extended to 12 intakes. So the limitation of that, the kind of the one-on-one mentorship, they really liked that. They really liked that it was Pan-Asian. They felt it was kind of a space for them to freely express themselves and as an alternate to a traditional institutional teaching at a typical photography or film school. And then the biggest being getting too caught up, overthinking, and having a vague idea on where to start. So providing the structure for them to help translate the idea in their head. So hence like why we created the shorter structure, and we created the end was not originally not to, create the short film, but just the concept art, just the beginnings and getting that. This is very, very early, like just the first iteration. So this is us launching the program with no presence really. So we didn't really have a lot of like social proof. The only thing we had was our personal association, myself as a photographer and Jimmy as a director. And so that I would say at the beginning that leaned heavily on that. But it was actually really surprising because we didn't spend any money on ads. It was almost all of it was word of mouth because people saw, they saw the pillars from the beginning. And I got so many messages that said, we love what you're doing. Like this is so needed in this community. So people shared on their own without us even having to ask. Some other things to define, I think, especially comes to eligibility, when we're saying little to no formal training, we try to make it that clear, both in the materials, but also repeated in the intake form, the application form. And other things to define was, who is this for? What will I learn? Like really put that in layman's terms and to make it, I think after doing this for 3 years now, I recognize that, and also being on the jury side, reviewing applications, it really is about finding like a good fit. So the number of applications doesn't matter if it's not a good, right person for the program. So we've had someone who come in the program, they rated it not as a good experience, but only because we realized that based on they defined their goals and it wasn't really what it was needed for the program. Other things like people who apply and they're actually too experienced. So they might find it too derivative or too repetitive to what they already know. So we know that's not a good experience for them as well, a good fit for them. So this is kind of the latest iteration. We kind of repeated it again as before. As someone who shares a lot of outreach and posts like this, you will not believe how much people don't think to put right in the beginning, the time, the dates, like when is it happening, the cost, if it's free or not. A lot of programs I see shared, they don't really say anywhere until the bottom and the very small, it's a free program. But the fact, like, if you put that at the forefront, that's really going to change everything. And then who is it for? So again, sometimes I find in the applications, the eligibility, like all the lists there, it's a little bit confusing. So if you can find a way to be like very concise about it, and then what you'll learn and what is the result. So the micro grant and the space access, that's something that was added after year one. We had received a private donor who we were able to distribute micro grants that went towards development of the personal photography and film projects. And then through a partnership with Gallery 44, they had offered to use the space for a day to the participants, and then also offered to do a in-person lighting demo. So establishing authenticity. I think the easiest is testimonials, people who have came through your program. I think the thing with testimonials, it's really easy for it to feel like a fake thing, like, oh, I had this great experience and it was just name. And so if you can speak to the pain point, so remember forward was I have a vague idea, getting too up in the overthinking. And if the testimonial kind of speaks to that, it's going to be so much more effective than like, I had a great experience, right? So some of these things was speaking to like confidence in moving forward, the creation of the community and collaborators. You know, freedom to openly express the ideas without feeling any sort of judgment. And then when in doubt, show the work. So what has been the result of the program? So I think I went through these earlier, which is what we had done was we just started sharing slides, samples from the treatments that people had created in the program to give you an idea of like, okay, this is what created before. We gave some, you know, stories, like showed people who come through the program, like created their film, got into film festivals. This could be you. And then things like, oh yeah, this is a repetition again. But also another thing is at the end of the Ideas for My, everyone creates the concept deck and pitches it. So we'd ask permission to use clips of that pitch, and then we just posted and shared that online, the whole pitch itself, and then some elements of feedback from the guest speakers and Jimmy and myself. So that's like, again, a really easy way to show like this is exactly what to expect when you do the program. And cultivating a culture of sharing. So this is something that I realized through networking as a freelancer myself. You know, I have barely applied to a formal job application. Somehow work has come through me through people I know, and then sometimes opportunities have come to me, and I don't know where or who it came from, but someone recommended me. So creating a culture of sharing, it's something I do very often in my own practice as a freelancer is I share everything. If I think I see a casting call, I'll send it immediately to a model who I've worked with before. I see a call for a producer, a call for a marketer, designer. I send it right away to someone I work before with no expectation. It's just like creating this culture of sharing. People are very grateful for that. And then it comes back, like, you know, it comes back 360. So something I started to do with eCrew is every day I share 10 opportunities that I find through other arts organizations, call for grants, deadlines, reminders, call for casting for actors. I try to do that every day. And then so when it comes down to share my program, like already I've built in that, you know, culture of sharing that it becomes so easy that, you know, when we post something, people just go with it because I've given so much to my network over the time. So when it comes to ask them, I almost don't have to ask. Here's an example of an outreach plan. So this is, I think, it was just based off personal brainstorming and connection, but it was really easy just to create a whole list. So I think this list is like up to 100. It was other grassroots arts organizations, like geographic city-based organizations, blogs, arts informal and formal arts news sites. Thinking about, you know, on some groups like arts education or arts opportunity sharing posts. I thought about, you know, about when we were breaking down who the audience is. So thinking about who would be the age demographic, where would they live, like where would they find, so, and beyond like other arts organizations and arts opportunities, like what is the best way to reach them, like where they are already. And then, you know, we talk about the word of mouth, and especially if you're a new program and you don't have a lot of social proof. So like already accessing the audience and the community where they are, it's just going to be so much easier. So it was just like sometimes it was simple as a message like, you know, hi, name. If I put in like, you know, we've been connected through this, or I've been following you for some time. And we're trying to get the word out about our free photography program and film program for Pan-Asian youth artists. And it was kind of like something very quick and formal like that. And they were just like, oh, great, we'll share the post, and something extremely very low barrier to them instead of them having to create something or write or new post from scratch. Just and then I said something like, you know, I thought this is something that your audience might be interested in. So we did that for social posts, but then also newsletters and existing groups. I think next time In the next iteration, would like to focus also on reaching people who aren't only on Instagram, and then create a broader reach there. This is something, again, like evaluating the effectiveness of your outreach. So, something as simple as like, how did you find out about us? And then if we go back to we were talking about earlier in word of mouth, this pretty much checks out. Word of 90, yeah, friend and family is 20%. And then 61% from an Instagram post. But I think I only spent $35 on a promoted post just as a test. But a few people came through that paid post because I could tell through the intake form that it was just like a very quick response, and it didn't seem like they knew a lot about the program. So maybe they're not actually a high quality lead for applicant. So it really came a lot through word of mouth. As an outreach exercise, I think if everyone, you don't have to put this out in the chat, but just for your own personal exercise, if you can list 6 groups that you maybe could start to have a relationship or you're in alignment. So a tip that I like to do is for outreach, if we went to outreach and go through like the who we funded in the past, there's a whole list of organizations, and then we're all in kind of the same sphere. We already have that connection being funded by the same grant. So it's very easy to just find them and then look for the other alignments and then reach out to them there. Yes, again, like kind of finding a basis of connection for you to reach out to them in the first place. And, with outreach, especially all the youth grassroots organizers, we all have like a very common goal. And so it was really easy to like cultivate that connection between the others to help each other and share each other's work, and programs. I'm going to talk a little bit about press. So I had actually I took a BIPOC TV and film. They had a mentorship kind of a connection and connected me with an executive at Bell who gave me some great advice about pitching for press. And then also as my personal experience working at Marketing Magazine, also working in spheres of PR, I think that for especially when maybe a common misconception is for companies, for example, is when they pitch like someone to write about their work, what they really want is, oh, I just want you to tell exactly what I want. But press is earned media, so you know it's it can't be controlled. The message is one important thing to think about, and then you have to think about an angle. So does what you're pitching to them to write about your program or work, does it meet the audience that they're trying to speak to? And why now? Like, what is the relevancy between talking about it now? So this is around this time, 2021. So this is the first time we had launched the program. And then this was all happening around the same time, was a little bit of topical drama about Kim's Convenience. And it came through that there had been some cast members was saying that something about the showrunners, or they had felt maybe they'd been misrepresented, or although it looked like a very diverse on the outside show, it was really the casting, but the people who were making decisions behind the camera, it was kind of a different story. And then so I decided to use this as an angle for a pitch for the reason of why it's important to have the ideas for my program. Again, if you remember from the pillar we had, we would something about diversity. It's like it matters not just in front, but behind the camera. So this is through Madeline, who I had met. Oh, this is like from we had been at the same kind of like press influencer event for Nike, maybe back in 2018. I met her and stayed connected with her intermittently Later on, she had started her own platform and website called Represent Asian. And this is around the beginning of the launch. So I already had this connection to her. And I don't remember if I had kind of met her at an event in person and kind of mentioned it and followed up by email. I guess I have. It says here's my information. But so the angle I was talking about was like, uh the topical aspect is like the recent controversy around Kim's Convenience and like why it is important for our program. So it ended up as an article. Um, in the longer article, it does reference Kim's Convenience and that. And this was really useful for us to establish the credibility. So again, because you only really need one or two press articles, but this was actually helpful in getting a larger sponsorship, private donor, because I believe we had opened up the applications. We were getting a lot more than we were expected. I think I just posted on LinkedIn. I linked this article and I said that, would love to speak to any other production companies, agencies that would be interested in sponsoring just to add more participants to the program because of the created interests. And that had connected me to someone who was a private donor. So again, it was adding in that other extra layer of credibility. Through the mentor that I connected with through BIPOC TV and film, he had advised me on creating a press release. So he had said, use a one page, put at the top just like very important terms to it, be specific about the dates, like the application deadlines. And this is just like a really one page overview, but this press release is not enough to convince why it is important to create the article about you. This is just all the relevant information for the writer to write the article about your program. My mentor also advised me on creating a press kit to make it really easy so the writer doesn't have to go back and ask for it. So for this, it was just a Dropbox link, linked the statement, images of the founder of myself, and then work by previous people who come through the program, and then the actual like marketing materials, flyers, and whichever that we had for the program. So from that, the I had pitched the photo editor. A photo editor is an industry blog. It's really well known within like commercial photography, especially in the States, in those circles. And then this was kind of just like started with sending outreach and then sending a brief outline about the programming, linking the pitch, and then it kind of turned into them coming back with the interview questions. And so I kind of wrote it out. So again, from my mentor had suggested that from a press angle, it's really easy if you have like a protagonist or kind of a one person to focus on because people are very driven by like archetypes of storytelling. So I really push myself, like my personal experience, my history as a photographer, like why I wanted to start, ideas because of my experience as da-da-da. And then using that angle. So talking about angle is more interesting than like reading uh, like the technical elements of the program or that. So creating the storytelling that way. And then we had the visuals, like we had some stills through throws. So it was like really nice to look at as well. Again, this is not something you have to do publicly in chat, but I would love for like, since we're always already thinking about all these things, if you could jot down like, what are 3 leads or outlets that I want to approach next? It doesn't have to be a legacy publication like a CBC or whichever. It could be a blog. And then thinking about if I have a personal connection. So it could be like a friend of a friend. So for example, I had someone who I was an acquaintance with at the time. She was working at CBC Arts. So I had sent that acquaintance an informal message like, hey, I'm trying to get the word out about this. And then that connection was kind of my champion. And it ended up like just a small shout out in the CBC Arts newsletter. They didn't have to create and write a whole story from scratch, but it was really helpful just having that connection and that lead. And so we're moving on to credibility through data. So something that we did in after the application form, we did an intake form and we asked everyone to rate their skills from a scale of 1 to 10. What are your skills or in confidence in concept development, in pitching yourself, in art direction, or all the different elements of the skills that we taught. We sent them to rate that. And then at the end in the evaluation, we asked them again. So we have a like quantifiable data of this is the improvement in the short 6-week span. Like this, like people, and some people at the beginning, they really rated themselves very low, like 2 out of 10, 4 out of 10. And then by the end, you know, in a month, it was like up to 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. So that's something that's really helpful is just like use those numbers and use that data for funding and otherwise. And then evaluation on the list. This is actually the structure I took from my therapist. My therapist asked me these questions on the rating scale. I feel understood, heard, and respected. We worked on what I want to work on. This approach is a good fit for me. So I really just like use that as a model for evaluating the program as well. And then also with the evaluation, what really helps, like, because sometimes in sending a form at the end or after the fact, it's, you know, it's not top of mind. It's hard to incentivize people unless you have like, I don't know, do a giveaway or something. So we kind of built it into the last workshop of the day. We utilize polls with Zoom. You can create polls. So we did that within it. We pretty much did the evaluation live, like keeping the data private. So then they wouldn't have to like go after the fact and think and remember those things. So, you know, sometimes it's a little helpful just to make, you know, make it very seamless and easy for them. Other ways to establish credibility, especially when we're a new program, was beyond like the association with Jimmy and I, like, and our experience in the industry. It was the industry speakers that we reached out to. So Iris is a director um, and commercial and music video space. Iris is really good because she's also very young and she has like very um I got connected to her when she did a documentary for her TMU documentary class on a collective I was in the part-time. And I kind of watched her like blossom and grow over the time. And Anna used to work at Gallery 44. So when we had that kind of informal partnership with Gallery 44 in the second year, and Anna was actually the one who taught the lighting demo. So I thought, okay, why don't we just bring her in a more official capacity and then also put her in the forefront too, because she's like really amazing photographer as well. Here's so these are some talks that we had done outside of the Ideas for My, and then these were all connections that we had previously. So Jeremy Lung, at the time he was a creative director for Institutional Investor. It was a trade publication, business publication in New York, but for transparency's sake, he's my best friend. So he was like very willing to do the talk, and also we tried the first one with him, so it was really easy to like figure out the flow of that. And then Fiorella Martinez is also a co-founder of Creato, the amazing platform for Latinx creatives in Canada. They were also funded previously through Outreach, so that's how I believe I initially got connected with her. And then she's also has her history and background in art direction. So this was just a series of free talks that we did. And then it was like very much put it in layman's terms and be very transparent. Like, how do you find an illustrator for a job? How much do you pay them? Like, what is the process? And so this helped us like open up kind of a larger audience, but also the credibility by associating with those industry people. And almost at the end, but another form of establishing credibility is through partnerships. So partnerships can be formal and informal. In my experience, it really just came through just having a connection with someone or another organization over time, and then saying like, hey, we should figure out a way to do something together. So Recess is another grassroots collective. They are based in Toronto. They have an office studio space in the 401 Richmond building. And I had connected with Shanik from Recess for a long time. And then so this came like very fluidly to do something together. We decided like, okay, why don't we just bring the elements from the ideas from that we teach them, create it in a condensed like 1 day to give feedback on pitch decks. And then we opened it up to kind of a larger audience behind like just strictly Pan Asian. So yeah, for this was very informal. And we had hosted they had agreed to let us host in their space. And then as a co-presenting the programming, because it's something that Recess, like they do a lot of these kinds of um, accessible workshops. It was very in line with their audience. And then it was also through the partnership, we were also conjoining our audiences. People from us were finding out about Recess, people from Recess were finding about us. So it was like a very happy marriage. Some other examples of partnerships on the left is we had received a microgrant funding through Helping Hands, which is an organization that funds youth-run volunteer programming. So we had applied for a microgrant to run a free collage and vision boarding workshop for BIPOC artists. Um, the partnership came along through Sketch. I think I was connected with someone from Sketch on LinkedIn, but I never met them before. I just reached out to them and asked them for, an informal meeting. I kind of told, give them a little bit of a rundown about what he had done. And then we had decided, through this, we had funding from the grant for space. So we decided to use Sketch's space as a rental. And then in creating them as a partner, there was a more formal partnership agreement, but we kind of decided, because the audiences had a lot of alignment, the audience for this workshop is very in line with Sketch's community of marginalized youth and the programming that they do for them. So it was a really easy fit. We used their space. They had provided a lot of collage materials from other workshops that they did. They provided like scissors and things like that. So it's things that we didn't have to buy from scratch. And yeah, so it was a really good fit for that. Another example on the right, I'll just go through it really quickly, but Sai, is a startup I think that they're doing like a tech startup for creative freelancers. And then I had known someone who worked there at the time. I known them through when they had worked at a workout dance studio years ago. We did a project together. So I just had that connection and again, kind of pitched this talk. So this came across really informally, but it was mutually beneficial in that I interviewed my connection at the time, and then we kind of did this like uh journaling and planning for the year. But it was a fit for them because we were a community of freelance artists, and that's how they were trying to reach as a new startup. And then for personal partnership exercise, again, you don't have to write in the chat, but thinking about these things, does anybody come to mind? It could be for profit, it could be not for profit, it could be another arts organization. I think sometimes it's actually more interesting when you have alignment with somebody who's not also a community arts organization, because you're just like reaching a whole new, sub element or a community of people that you might have normally been able to. Some funding that we had through Park People. So we had some micro grants through them, Sparking Change, and this year we have an Into the Ravines micro grant. I think that was really interesting because we proposed arts workshop and programming, but for them, they're all about community programming in public parks and spaces. And there's kind of like a little bit of an eco lens to that. So that's kind of another word of exploration outside of just like arts funding, kind of in this world of like, outdoor, eco-friendly or sustainability funding as well, opening up some other possibilities. And this is a bonus, but this exercise, the fifth, is establishing boundaries. So this is also something if you want to put in the chat or not, it's not really required. But I think this is also important as grassroots organizers, is, you're so passionate about the cause, you're willing to sacrifice your own time and energy for it. But, we all know that's not sustainability in the long run because um, at least for me is, the projects that I'm involved with, I want it to not be just reliant on myself and my efforts. I do want it to grow beyond just what I can do. So something that we've been working on, for example, is applying for microgrants and grants that have a mentorship capacity, community arts facilitation. So for example, one we had done through Brampton Arts Organization was I was a mentor facilitator to Paula, who's a emerging filmmaker who I also mentored through the Canon Futures program. And then so I helped her walk through the process of designing and teaching a intro to story structure screenwriting workshop. And basically through that steps, help supported her through the process. And then, she created this whole curriculum on her own. And then she's kind of ready to go and teach it herself. So how can we train other people so we're not just only dependent on the efforts of ourselves? And so some of the boundaries for me, I'm thinking moving forward is boundaries around time. I really want a better work-life balance, especially when it comes to, on my grassroots, because I'm so passionate, but, I have a freelance practice and I got bills to pay too. So, I have to establish that beforehand so I don't really burn myself that. And then also, establish yourself. We're all grassroots, we're all under-resourced, but we can only do so much magic with what we have. So that could come down to making a case for more funding, for more support and more sponsorship, uh, you know, and not just rely on like the extra work and the extra capacity that you have to put onto it. It should be compensated for your efforts. And that's it for me. We can open it up to any Q&A. I'm going to look at the chat. I really haven't looked at it all. Or if anyone wants to unmute or say any thoughts.
No one? Everyone? No one. I want to say thank you, Pam. I think it's a great way to think about utilizing grassroots and outreach from a community-based perspective, from thinking about networks that you may have around you to actually benefit your organization or benefit your artistic practice. And I hadn't realized that you had this many connections to CPAMO before. So that's a really pleasure to actually provide the space for you to do this particular workshop based on experience, based on the experiential learnings that you've received from doing the work. Sometimes trying the work without success, I think, is some of the best ways we actually develop the tenacity to do the work that we do in the future. So thank you so much for that.